Hello, I'm Jay from Volunteer Audio, and today I'm making a video to cover some questions we get all the time. We've got the HD Audio by Rockford Stage 2 and Stage 3 speakers for the new 2023.5 and up Harley-Davidson touring bikes. We're going to do some testing on these speakers. We're going to be doing testing on the whole system to let you know what the difference is between them, which one is better, what is better, and what can you do if you own these to make it even better. So continue to watch this as we do some awesome tests. We're going to use an RTA, see what kind of signal is being sent to these speakers if we select Stage 2 versus Stage 3. We're also going to do an SPL test to see how loud are they overall. We'll get into the specs on what power they need, and we'll test that factory amplifier to see how much power it's putting out. At the end, I'm going to show you a new solution from Volunteer Audio where we put a much larger amplifier and a DSP in place, continue to run these speakers and make them better than they've ever been. So keep watching and find out more. All right, so let me give you a little bit more info about what I have planned during this video as we go through it today, because I want you to hang out to the end and know what to expect as we go forward. First, I'm going to take our 2023.5 Street Glide CVO. I'm going to put it back completely stock. We're going to have what they call the Stage 2 Rockford Fosgator HD Audio by Rockford speakers. They came factory in that CVO with a fully up-to-date radio, up-to-date amp, and we're going to do some testing. First thing we're going to test total SPL output. So we're going to see just how loud this system is. I'll play a song, and we'll also play some test tones. And we're going to do this the same as we move forward and we change equipment to have a light test. We're also going to, in the Stage 2 setup, we're going to dyno that factory amplifier and see what the real-world numbers are on that amp in the bike in the Stage 2 settings. We're also going to view with an RTA what that amp is sending to the speaker. So what kind of house curve or bass boost or whatnot is Rockford doing when you select Stage 2. I'm then going to move up. So we did some testing in the past where we did just that. We showed you the output of the system. We showed you ways of making it better. But since then, Rockford's introduced, or HD Audio by Rockford has introduced what's called the Stage 3 speakers. There's been a lot of hype about these. They're very expensive. I want to go over in greater detail with you the difference between these two speakers from a spec standpoint, but then we're going to test them. They're going to go into the same bike. We're going to test that amplifier to see how much it's putting out in the Stage 3 mode. We're also going to see the total SPL output of these, because these speakers say they're more efficient. So even on the same amp, they should be louder. And we're going to find out what happens when we go from Stage 2 to Stage 3 in settings. Is it simply EQ changes and crossover points, or is it actually more power? We're going to retest that amp. We're going to find that out. Now, a lot of you have already done, well, you've already spent a lot of money. You've already spent money on, say, the drop-in subwoofers that go in this bike. You've already bought the Stage 3 system. And you call me all the time saying, I'm not satisfied with it. I still want more. Now, in our previous test, we found out that that amp, the factory amp, is pretty shy on power for what these speakers claim they can do. And these are claiming like 250 watts RMS. We have a solution. So Volunteer Audio has our A to B interface. We have the larger Hertz amplifier. And I've been working on a special DSP tune just for this system. And at the end, after we've done all the testing with the factory parts, we're going to throw in that larger amplifier and we're going to retest. I'm going to show you how much louder it is with more power. We're going to see how much of a better tone we get out of it. And our interface at Volunteer Audio, our SeirenHD partnership, has made it where we are the only interface company on the planet that can keep the factory subwoofers working as well. So if you've already spent the money on Stage 3 speakers, Stage 3 subwoofers, and you want more, I'm going to show you at the end how to get that and how much more you're going to get by putting this amp in. And this amp is spec'd out to be exactly what these speakers say they need. So we're going to go pretty quick. I'm not going to make you watch me change all the equipment out, but I am going to show you each test. And we may very well do this where we just do SPL test. We'll go Stage 2, Stage 3, we'll add the amp. Then we'll go back and we'll look at frequency response on each one. And we'll do this in segments where you can quickly see those results. I know your time is valuable, and I want to show you just how awesome this is going to be. This set of data is going to be, and what we can do with this new Hertz amplifier setup for this new 2023.5 and up body style Harley. Also, when we're completely done with this series, this bike's going up for sale. So if you watch this and you go, man, that system's awesome and I don't have that bike yet, I'm looking for one of those, we'll go over that in a future video, show you that. Let's get to the bike. I'm going to put the full Stage 2 speaker setup in it, make sure it's up to date. We'll come back and we'll start our testing. All right, so before I start a test, I need to tell you a little bit more about the equipment and why we're doing this test. So the system we have in this CVO right now is the Stage 2. This was the factory system. This was the first system that I tested from these new bikes because the CVOs came out before the base models. One of the things we quickly heard was it had a huge bass boost. It wasn't as loud as we expected, but it's had a lot of bass sitting still, and as we got louder, that turned into distortion and limited our overall volume. So one of the things I want to show between Stage 2 and Stage 3 is what is different. What changes when you make those changes in the radio. So we're going to be monitoring and measuring the RTA output. So this is a real-time analyzer. We're using a company called Audio Control, their DMRTA. I've got it connected right now to the front speaker leads, but we're also going to connect to the rear. We're going to play pink noise, which is just a lab-grade track that plays every frequency at the same level at the same time. If this was a flat EQ or a flat output on the amp, we would have a flat output on our RTA. We're going to see what frequencies are boosted. I think we're going to see a lot of bass boost. And we're doing this because we're also going to do the Stage 3, and we're going to show the results of that as well. And I'll go into more details as we go on. But let's get our pink noise playing. We're going to read the front track. I'll take a snapshot of that to share with you. We're going to also do the rear speakers and do the same thing. And then we'll move on and test the Stage 3 in the same manner. All right, for the sake of transparency, I'm going to have Eric go to the front of the bike, show you what amp's in it. You're going to see the factory Rockford amplifiers in here. In the radio, we've already set it to Stage 2. This is running the 1.54 software, which is the latest amp software. Radio's up to date to the latest software in the radio as well. I left the grills off so you can see we have the Stage 2 Rockford speakers also installed front and rear on the bike. Every time I do a test like this, somebody thinks we're hiding something, so I don't want him to cut. I want him to see this. I've got our pink noise track up and going. You're going to hear some of this, but you're also going to see it. And let's get this playing. So this is the front left speaker. The right should be pretty much the same. All right, so from that reading, what we can see is as we went across that graph, and we'll show you a still photo of this, between that 600 hertz range and that 80 hertz range, we have a 9 decibel boost. So at this particular volume level, we have a huge bass boost, and as I went louder, I still had that bass boost in my testing. This does a couple things though. We're really used to this. So if you have a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and in the past, you've ever had a Boom Stage 1, Boom Stage 2, or even the HD Audio by Rockford system that had 5x7-inch speakers in the lids, you got tired of probably replacing those from blowing. And what we found is factory, they put a huge bass boost to make it sound great in your garage or in the dealership. But when you get going down the road, that bass turns into distortion. And with this size speaker, a 6.5 is what we're testing. There's a 5x7 in the back. That bass over time blows the speaker. That distortion, because they're trying to play frequencies that an 8-inch subwoofer would play to a 6.5-inch speaker that really can't do that long term. So that equates to not having enough volume. Later, we'll do an amp test checking how much power the amp has. And the way I think they get away with this is they really underpower the speakers and boost the bass. So they get a while out of it, but it doesn't give you the overall volume that you would expect while riding and the clarity that we come to want from a very high-end audio system. Let's move to the rear speaker and let's see how much of a bass boost is on those. All right, so I'm playing now. The rear channels are being fed through a connector into an RCA here. The rear speakers have been disconnected for this test. We're not going to pass it through, but I'm going to unpause it and let's see what kind of bass boost we have on that rear signal. All right, so according to the data on the screen, we had about a 9 decibel bass boost on the front. We've got about 12 decibel of bass boost on the rear. Huge increase around that 80 hertz range. And if you look into these speakers, you're going to find out that's about the lowest they'll play. So trying to peak them at their lowest note is definitely going to shorten their life, but it's also going to cause them to break up, especially in bass-heavy songs. Now, we're using the HD signature setting in the radio for all of these tests today. That is, in our test, the highest output of all of their settings and equivalent to what we would call a flat output from the radio. Now, this bass boost is actually in the amplifier and the DSP that's on board for the stage 2 setting. So as we go to stage 3, we expect to see these results change. We'll see what they are when we get there. All right, so it's time for our SPL test. I've actually got our audio control DMRTA set up in SPL mode. We have told it we're using a CM10 microphone, which is up here on our mic stand, placed right at head height on this bike. We're going to keep that mic in that same position as we go through this test so we have an accurate result on the differences between each one, and we're using a mic that is actually calibrated. So as I talk, you see the decibel reading coming up here. I'm going to put this on a peak hold, and what that's going to do is it's going to stop and hold the loudest thing that's coming out. So this first test is pink noise. The second one, we're going to play a song, see if we get any difference. So here's that pink noise track. We're going to turn it up, see how high it goes. All right, so there toward the end, we hit 116 decibel. That is the loudest we got. It's 4 speakers, all playing at the same time, all playing pink noise at full volume. Now, to give you a reference for decibel, a live rock concert's between 120 and 130. With 4 speakers, this is a pretty decent number as far as the total amount of output. We'll play a song, see what happens when we're actually listening to music. So we'll have that comparison. We'll play the same copyright-free song between each system as we go along as well. So 116 decibel was the reading for the stage 2 4-speaker system that would have came factory in this CVO. We'll test the stage 3 later, but now let's play a song and see what we get there. All right, so SPL test using music. We're playing a track from Epidemic Sound. It is a copyright-free song, but it's very dynamic, it's very loud. We're going to use the same one as we do this. So let me start this. All right, so I hope the alarm chirping at the end there didn't raise that number any, but it looks like we got 117.5, played 45 seconds of it. We'll do that again later. This song's very dynamic, a lot of highs, lots of bass. Those different frequencies are going to give us different results. So 117.5 decibels, the loudest we got. We're going to swap this system out to stage 3 speakers. Understand, stage 3 uses this same amplifier. So we're going to find out, does it get louder by going to those speakers? They claim to be more efficient, but they also claim to handle more power. So we'll do some testing showing you, are you going to gain volume, overall volume, riding down the road by going to the stage 3? And if so, how much? We're also going to do a third test on this. Once we get done with the stage 3 speakers with the factory amp, we're going to drop in that big Hertz amp with our new tune, and we're going to see how much louder it is when we give it a lot more power. All right, so now I'm going to tear the bike down, throw the stage 3 speakers in it, front and rear. We're going to reset up the radio, and we'll be back to do this test again and see what that difference is. All right, so we're on to our stage 3 test. And just to be clear and make sure you can see everything, you'll notice we have the red ring speakers. The tweeter rings are all red on the stage 3. They're installed front and rear. Still working with that factory style, the CVO 500 watt HD audio by Rockford amplifier. On my radio screen, you'll see we are currently configured to stage 3. If we weren't configured, it would say start test, but that has been done. So we're going to continue on through our sets of tests with these new speakers, with this new configuration, and find out how much louder are they. And one thing that I want to point out about these speakers, the stage 3 speakers on paper look pretty amazing. And actually, in person, the 6x9s have a much beefier magnet, bigger motor structure, should be able to play a little deeper bass without blowing compared to those 5x7s. We also have more cone surface area, and according to the specs, the stage 2 speakers are 150 watts RMS. The stage 3 are 250 watts RMS. That's exciting because that's a lot of power handling, and I think if we threw 250 watts on them, they're going to be much louder. Now here's the issue. The stage 3 system is currently only available from Harley with that same amplifier as the stage 2. So if we look at those same specs, we have a 2 decibel increase. So stage 2 speakers are 90 decibel efficient. Stage 3 are 92 decibel efficient. If we gave them the same power, we should see a little bit more output from the stage 3, but I'm a little worried as you make it where it plays more bass, as you make it where it has more power handling, you tend to lose efficiency. So when we throw the same power in the same amp, and we're going to see if it's the same power. We'll be doing our dyno test here shortly as well. We'll find out if it's the same power or if it increased when we selected stage 3. Maybe they have a way of gaining it up. But I want to see SPL. That's where we're at right now. We're going to play our pink noise track. We're going to play a song. We're going to measure it over here, and we're going to see what that peak volume is. And by spending $580 a set, current price, $579 for the rears, $579 for the fronts. If you take your stage 2s out, you put your stage 3s in, are you going to see a volume increase? That's the test we're on now. We'll move on to another one later, but let's get this one done and find out what kind of increase we got. All right, first, I'm going to go exit out of here. We're going to go to music. We're going to go to our USB drive, and we're going to go to pink noise. And I'm going to pause it. I'm going to turn it all the way up, as you see here. We're also going to put a hold on here, so it'll give us our largest or loudest point. I'm going to get out of the way so you can see the screen, and I'm going to start the test with all of our speakers connected and playing. All right, so if you recall earlier, we did this test. I think that number was 116 decibel, but I'm sure Eric will put up on screen what that earlier number was. With pink noise, we got 115.8. Volume all the way up, all 4 speakers connected and playing, configured for stage 3. I don't think we got a significant SPL increase. But now let's move on. I'm going to go to some music. We're going to play the same song we did earlier. We're going to redo this test, and we'll see what we get from there. All right, so continuing that stage 3 test, we're going to play this track from Epidemic Sound on what should be, you would think, a louder system. 6x9s instead of 5x7s, configured for that. And we're going to play some music. So we're going to see just how much extra output we get. Now, previously with the stage 2 speakers, we got 117.5 decibel. Again, a rock concert's between 120 to 130, depending on where you are around the stage. As you get closer, it's going to be louder. So, you know, that's not a bad number, but let's see what we get increase after spending that money upgrading to that next level.
Hey, yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy. Walk with me, you know that I got it. Come with me, let's take a trip to the islands. We up on the jet over more than just fly on it. Then on that hill, you gon' die on it. I'm not one of them, you should try on this game with all that I'm on the next. This up, I send you back to your ex, but good luck with that, this is biggest.
All right, so I guess due to the efficiency of the speaker, we got just a little bit more. Looks like we gained 0.7 decibel, not a whole decibel. And to your ears, to see a significant improvement, normally we need to see a 3 decimal increase. So from SPL alone, I don't think it's a huge difference between one to the other. It is better, but I guess you'll have to tell yourself, is it worth $579 times 2 better? So we'll move on to the rest of our tests. Remember, in this series, we're checking not only the output, but the power and the frequency response. So we're going to move on to those tests now. All right, so I've read a lot about the comments you've made in forums, the reviews you've left on the difference between the stage 2 and stage 3, and a lot of you had questions. That's why we made this series. Some people seem to love them. Some people say it's not worth the money. So I'm going to try to find out, the people who love them, what is it that made them so much better? So we just did an SPL test and we saw a little bit of an improvement. Not a huge amount, 0.7 decibels according to our microphone. We've got it set about right where your head would go with all 4 speakers playing. I want to find out though, did they change the frequency response? Because what we think as something sounds good or not good a lot of times has to do with the way the EQ is set up. And I think the bass boost is way too high on the Stage 2 speakers. I believe that has caused them to be distorted and not as loud to your ears. So we're going to do a test playing pink noise, see what kind of frequency response we have. I'm going to start on the front speakers. We'll get them playing. I'll turn it up. We'll see what kind of boost we have. Did that change? And then later on, we'll do that power test and see if we got any more power out of it. So let's get this playing. All right, so again, pretty big increase. 1, 3, 6, 9. All right, so I'm checking the front speakers. Previously, we had about a 9 decibel increase on the Stage 2 on the bass frequency range. It looks like we have about a 12 decibel. It looks like they've increased that bass boost even more as they went to the Stage 3 speakers. Stage 3 is a little beefier, handles more power. They could probably get away with a little bit more bass without blowing them. Now, I've seen some reports already, and it's a little worrisome putting more power on them because we have people that are blowing these speakers, and I'm seeing that report. So as we build our tune, I will tell you, the Hertz solution from Volunteer Audio will not have that huge bass boost. It's going to give us clarity, volume, and your music is going to be more correct in its output. But we'll get as much bass as we can while getting that output. It's a fine line between bass and volume, and you got to find there where it fits correctly, the product continues to last, and you can hear it clearly at those highway speeds. Again, radio set to HD signature on all of these tests. That's the highest output setting in the radio. It's also supposed to be their flat output. So that is a pretty large increase. I'm going to move to the rear speakers. We'll test those and see that result now. All right, turning on that again. Let's see what we get. Adjust the volume where it fits on our screen. We see here, we still have a pretty large boost. That boost has moved though from 80 to a little lower. It looks like they're boosting that 63 hertz, closer to 50 hertz range. But we also still have a 3, 6, 9, 12, almost 15 decibel boost. So after looking at this, seeing almost 15 decibels of increase or boost on the bass and moving it to a lower frequency, I think some of you that bought them that are happier now, or say you're happier now, are bass freaks and you like that extra bass. The problem with that bass is though, as the system didn't get louder. It got a little bassier in your garage. You got bassier when you show off to your friends, but I don't think it added any clarity on the upper end going down the road. Now that 0.7 decibel may have came in to make it a little better while your head's in the wind, while you got some speed going. But the next thing I want to check is power. So we've checked the crossovers and they did change. It did drop in frequency on the rear. It did increase in total bass boost on the front. So this is going to have overall a bassier sound. And with speakers that are a little bit more capable of carrying that from a 5x7 to a 6x9, it makes sense why they made that change. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that's way too much bass boost to give us the clarity we're after while we're going down the highway. And most other audio brands out there have moved more toward clarity and overall volume with good mid bass versus trying to make it sound very bass heavy. And it's given us a much better sounding system while riding. Let's move on to our amp test next. And let's see how much power we're getting after we've moved on to the Stage 3 settings. All right, so the plan was to go ahead and do an amp dyno test in the Stage 3 settings and to make sure that our power, to see if it actually went up or went down or stayed the same between it. Now, the problem with that is as we went from Stage 2 to Stage 3, what we saw earlier in the previous test was that they changed the bass boost, and we saw they changed some things on the output for Stage 3 as far as crossovers. What you couldn't see, and we didn't see at the time, was they changed some limiters in the background. Those limiters are not happy with our test tones for this RMS test, and so therefore we actually got a lower wattage number in our test. It actually saw a clip. The amp was protecting itself much earlier. So due to that lower result, and we know that's not an accurate lower result, we're not going to show that test. I definitely am not here to to make something seem worse than it is. We want to be accurate in our test. But I did do a different test where we took a digital voltage meter, we played test tones on stage 2 and stage 3, and we got the same amount of voltage out of the amplifier, which means between the two, we did not raise or lower the total output. So because of that, we're going to rely on the SPL test. We saw that 0.7 decibel gain between stage 2 and stage 3. The speakers alone say they're 2 decibel more efficient. If that is correct, you also saw the power did not increase on the amplifier because we would have had a much bigger number. If that amp had went from the 150 watts to 250 watts that the speaker needed, we would have expected to see several decibel increase just from that. For instance, if you double your power, you should see 3 decibels increase on the microphone. So we didn't see that. We saw the 0.7. We know the amp is the same amp. We also know it isn't capable of doing more power. And all they changed were limiters, crossovers, maybe some other things inside the DSP of it, but they did not actually change power output. So we're going to move on. The next thing we're going to do is the Hertz amplifier with our DSP custom tuned for the stage 3 speakers. I want to show you those SPL results. We're going to do that test, but we're also going to test the power on it and show how much power it does. We won't have those same limiters. We don't have limiters in our amp that are going to affect it. So we'll show you the power rating in a real world use with that amplifier in a 2-ohm load. All right, so it's time to continue our SPL test. We've already tested the Rockford or HD Audio by Rockford stage 2 system earlier. We got 116 decibel using pink noise. We then did the stage 3 speakers, and we actually lowered just a little bit. It was 115.8 was our final number from that pink noise test. Now we're going to step it up. We've put in our Hertz amplifier with our A to B interface. We're going to throw some serious power to these stage 3 speakers. Now, I expect to see this increase by roughly 3 decibel or a little more, because anytime you double your power, you're going to gain 3 decibel. Anytime you double it again, you gain 3 more decibel. This becomes more and more hard as you go on. So let's say that these speakers are getting the 80 watts that we saw in the stage 2 test. If we throw 250 watts to them, which is what I believe this amp is doing, we're going to see 3, 4, maybe 5 decibel increase as we go through these tests. So pink noise is not going to give us as big of an increase. We're going to play music afterwards, so continue on for that as well. But remember, our last test, 115.8 with these same speakers. They do handle more power. Even though they have more efficiency, they didn't do as well on that factory amp in volume in that test. So I've got a SPL meter connected. Microphone's in the same position. We haven't moved it. And this is going to hold whatever that loudest amount is. So as I make more noise, you're going to see this change and go up. But let's see what this maximum we're going to get. I'll get out of your view so you can see the screen better. And I'll get over here and I'm going to play our pink noise and then bring up the volume. Let me throw in some hearing protection. I've been doing this a while. My ears have been ringing as it gets louder and louder. So let me throw something in to help with that. Well, it's a lot louder. It's loud enough to set the alarm off on the bike and make you where it needs to find the key again. But it also, if you notice, we went up about 5.5 decibel. That's a huge number. I'm sorry, 4.5 decibel. Let me get my math right. We were 115.8 to 119.3. That's 4.5 decibel. That's exactly where I thought we'd be. So if we doubled our power and then we did half of that again, that's the result. So that proves, I think, a little bit about the power of the factory amps putting out. The Hertz amp is significantly more powerful. And with the DSP that we have in our A to B module, we've been able to tune it for better clarity, which will show out when we get to music. Now understand, as we increase power, we went through this previously, these speakers have a big bass boost with that smaller amplifier. And they're able to get away with that because of the lower power. But as we get more and more power, as we mechanically start moving those speakers with more power behind it, you don't want to physically break it due to the excursion. So you have to start putting in high-pass filters and limiting that bass to an extent. We can't have those huge boosts to get volume and clarity going down the road, which is what we see from most aftermarket speaker systems, is they're going to go more for clarity and fullness of tone than just overall just bass. So this bike has the drop-in subwoofers. That will help with the bass portion on the low end. We don't have to try to get that out of these speakers, but it still sounds good. Next test is music. We're going to play the same track from Epidemic Sounds. It's copyright free. We're going to see the result we get from that, but I think we're going to see a significant improvement over the last test we did with the smaller factory amp. All right, we're to the music test on our Stage 3 speakers with our Hertz SP4.900. This is significantly more power, so we're going to see what it does on our SPL meter. We did this test previously with that CVO 500 watt amp. Now we're going to see what a big amp with real power will do, properly tuned. So let's get this playing.
Yeah, let's see how you doing the pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this forever. I've been in the field wherever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Yeah, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm cash out. Get to the paper, boy. Walk with me, you know that I got it. Come with me, let's take a trip to the islands. We up on the jet, one for more than just fly on it. Stand on that hill, you gon' die on it. Baby, I'm not one of them, used to try on it. Miss me with all that I'm on it. This up, I send you back to your ex, but fill up with that, this is big as it gets. Hey.
124.3. It's a lot more than we got on our previous test. If I remember right, that's about a 6 decibel increase. I'm not looking at that at the moment. That was hours ago. But we're going to bring those up on screen. We'll look at the difference between them. But that's a huge improvement by swapping your amplifiers. So a lot of you guys have bought the Stage 3 audio speakers, and you don't think they're loud enough, they're not clear enough, and you're thinking about redoing the whole system again. Keep in mind at Volunteer Audio, we're experts on these A to B systems. We've got the solution right now, and we've perfectly tuned that DSP for clarity and volume. Now, we've had to take some of that bass boost out, as I keep going on about, because I wanted you to know you can't get that much bass out of 6x9s at the volumes you need them. It's a fine line. It sounds great. As you see, these speakers are rocking. They're still creating bass, but they're not creating the distortion we would expect with that huge boost. System sounds great. I think the speakers aren't bad at all. They just need a good amp with some great power. And with our ability to tune that DSP correctly and send it out plug and play, you can make this change and really help your system. Also, Volunteer Audio's A to B interface, the one that we've built with SeirenHD, it's the only interface on the market that will retain those factory subwoofers. So if you have the Rockford drop-in subs as well, they'll continue to work even after you change the amp and use our interface. All of this is available at Volunteer Audio, completely plug and play, already pre-tuned for this system. So we'll have a link to that in the video. We'll have a product tag to it. It'll also be in the description. But if you need help contemplating what to do, reach out to Volunteer Audio, call our sales team at 1-844-30-AUDIO. Now, if you haven't already made the jump into the Rockford Stage 3 speakers, listen, we've got systems that are amazing that you can purchase complete, speakers, amp, and all, that are louder than this as well. And I think you're going to find out at a better price point. So we'd love to talk to you about your bike, your build, your budget, go over those options with you, make sure you get the right decision, make that right decision the first time. Oh, did I mention we have drop-in subs coming soon as well that are actually louder than the factory option that'll work off of that amp. So if you haven't already bought those drop-in subs, don't waste your money. Wait on the better solution that's just right around the corner. As soon as I can, I'm ready. I'm ready. As soon as I can, I'm going to make a new video. I'm going to show you those new sub enclosures, go over all the options. Hopefully we'll get the launch pre-orders soon and I'll get to share that. But until then, try to be patient because you're going to be upset if you bought these instead. All right, so in this test video, we talked about the frequency response. We showed you SPL results. We talked about power. I could test this amp again and go through that and show it to you. We did that in a previous video. It did 250 watts RMS power at 2 ohm. That's what we'd expect to see again today. I know your time's valuable. No need in just doing that over and over again. And since the Stage 3 option didn't give us usable results to show you, I don't see there's a reason in doing that. But the results speak for themselves. 6 decibel is equivalent to doubling your power twice. That doesn't mean you went from 80 watts to 160 and then 240. It means we did even more than that because it gets harder and harder. You have to double the whole number to gain 3 more decibel. These speakers really did well with the power. I was afraid they wouldn't handle it. I was afraid they would try to blow. I've not smelled any of them get hot or have any issues, but they're properly tuned. Thank you for watching. Comment below and let me know what you think about the increase we were able to get by putting the amplifier in there. And I do expect that eventually there'll be another amp or two available at your dealership level that will be more power than what's in there. But I assure you, it's not going to be better than what Volunteer Audio puts together. We're always a step ahead. We're always excited though. I love that they've put out a better option than what they used to have. This sets that benchmark, that level at a new point that everybody's going to be working, all the other aftermarket companies, to do better than. And I love seeing the industry continue to progress, continue to move forward. So if you bought these, I can help you make them better. If you haven't, reach out. I'll get you a whole system that'll blow your mind. But give us a call, comment below, and listen, check out volunteeraudio.com. All of these options are on there, so if it's outside of business hours, you can check them out. But if you need help, we're always here. Give us a call. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, God bless.